So let's begin with opening statements. Each debater has 2 minutes. Now, David Haskell from the People's Party. David.
Thank you very much. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm David Haskell. I have the honor of representing the People's Party tonight, and I'll begin that task by briefly detailing who we are and what we stand for. The People's Party, also known as the PPC, is the newest political party, and we're also the fastest growing in the history of Canada. Our candidates and supporters are of diverse races, ethnicities, and religions, and what unites us is our belief that Canada is unapologetically good, and its core values, rooted in the Western and Judeo-Christian tradition, have made it so. Now, you may find it curious that such a basic introduction needs to be made for the PPC, but it arises from the fact that the media really doesn't give us much coverage, and when it does, it tends to be very one-sided. Related to media coverage, you may have heard the leader of my party, Maxime Bernier, has been excluded from several televised debates. Perhaps what's more shocking is this: not one of the other federal party leaders has spoken out against that censorship. In fact, a few have repeatedly and openly encouraged it. In our opening statement tonight, it was requested that we touch on how each party can raise the bar on respectful political discourse. Let me tell you what immediately comes to my mind. It's this: if you truly want to encourage respectful political discourse, a great first step would be letting your opponent speak. It seems to me our democracy depends on it. And consider this: if the leader of a party is willing to censor a political rival because of ideological differences, can you ever believe that that same leader will defend your right to speak when you happen to disagree with the party? Thank you.
Let us go on to the next topic, which is religious freedom. And our first question will again come from the screen. So roll the tape, please.
Hello. I am Carl Létu, National Director of the Catholic Near East Welfare Association. Kenewa provides important support to Middle Eastern Christians and Eastern Catholics worldwide. Although you don't see it in the news often, Christians are facing violence around the world. During my travel to the Middle East, I've heard my share of disturbing stories from families that have experienced firsthand violence, fear, and hatred for the simple fact that they are Christian. This is why I stand here at the Good Shepherd Chaldean Catholic Parish in North York. Many families have come from Iraq, and they are worried about their relative remaining in their homeland. They are among 327 million Christians for whom having their religious freedom violated by discrimination and persecution is a daily reality. Violence and persecution against any religious group is wrong. Yet Christians are the victim of 75% of the world's religiously motivated violence. In pure numbers, Christians are the most persecuted group in the world. Any violation of religious freedom, as you will agree, must be taken seriously. If elected, how would your party respond to the global problem of Christian persecution?
Thank you, Carl. Now again, the candidates have 1 minute to respond based on the randomly drawn order. And this time we're going to start with David Haskell from the People's Party.
Well, thank you. In the spring of this year, I'm corroborating what we just heard. The British Foreign Office released a study on religious persecution. It found that Christians are the most persecuted group in the world. Christians in Muslim-majority countries fare the worst. In deference to current cultural prejudice against Christianity, most political leaders have turned a blind eye to the violent persecution of Christians that they're experiencing worldwide. A People's Party government will not continue this willful blindness. We have an explicit refugee policy that gives priority to the most persecuted minorities, and we will also protect the rights of Christians and other believers here at home. Our current Liberal government actively discriminates against Christians and people of conservative moral convictions. We saw it with the requirement to support abortion in writing to receive summer job funding. The People's Party is the only federal party with a policy to end that discrimination.
You're next, yeah.
Thank you. I just want to point out to the crowd tonight what you hear and what you don't hear. When my colleague from the Green Party was describing the persecution, he used Christian once and then he moved on to minorities. Christian was no longer mentioned. When we heard Don saying that in Pakistan, the majority religion persecutes Christians, he didn't want to say Muslim or Islam. The problem is that political correctness is getting in the way of truth and it's getting in the way of solutions. And we see this again and again in what's happening with the persecution of Christians. Unless we are willing to face these problems and actually say what's going on, we can't move toward solutions. In fact, in that study that I mentioned, the British official who had done the study said that political correctness is actually leading to greater persecution of Christians. We see this in our own country where Elizabeth May, when interviewed by a reporter, and she's asked, "Who's your hero?" She says, "Jesus Christ." And then she says, "Oh, I apologize. I shouldn't have said that." She said she shouldn't say it because in order to be inclusive, she cannot promote Christianity. What kind of double standard is that? What kind of bizarre idea is it that every other faith can speak its name, but Christianity can't? And this is a problem that not just hurts us here, but hurts Christians worldwide. We need to be able to speak the name of Jesus, we need to be able to speak the name of Christianity, and we need to address these problems head on.
I'm glad that everybody is following my admonition not to applaud during the debate, only at the beginning and the end. Thank you for following the rules. And let us use our head and heart on our third topic now. And that is life issues. Can we hear the question, please?
I'm Sister John Mary from the Sisters of Life, a community of women who seek to foster a culture of life in Toronto and throughout North America. We're here at our ministry center in downtown Toronto. Much of our work involves supporting pregnant women who are alone and need help. We also assist women who have suffered after abortion to heal and regain hope. With 94,000 abortions having been reported in Canada in 2017 alone, we know that this is an issue which impacts a great number of women. However, many people are surprised to learn that Canada hasn't had an abortion law in 30 years. Polls consistently tell us that while Canadians have differing views on abortion, most feel that there should be some restrictions in place, such as banning late-term or sex-selective abortions. However, despite the desire of Canadians for protective restrictions, none of the major political parties want to pass an abortion law. Neither do they seem to want to provide appropriate healthcare supports to those at the end of life. Most people at the end of life cite pain and loneliness as their primary concerns. We know that palliative care can address these issues, yet only 15% of Canadians receive palliative care in the home, and only a third of Canadians have access to any palliative care at all. Instead, there are many proponents lobbying to expand the criteria to make it easier for Canadians to plan their own deaths. Our Catholic faith views every human life as sacred, made in the image of God. We believe that every person deserves to be upheld, protected, and accompanied towards life-affirming decisions. If elected, how would your party tackle these issues and defend the rights of all Canadians from conception to natural death?
Well, thank you, Sister John Mary. 1 minute each for the debaters.
Thank you. Of all the federal parties, only the People's Party allows its candidates and future MPs to openly discuss and bring forth legislation on any issue of concern to Canadians, including abortion and euthanasia. In our support of freedom of expression and freedom of conscience, we stand alone. Even the federal Conservative Party, at one time the protector of conservative values, has abandoned those values completely. Andrew Scheer, mimicking the words of Justin Trudeau, has repeatedly insisted, quote, He will oppose any attempt by his social conservative backbench to reopen the abortion file. Well, be they candidates or citizens, the People's Party of Canada will not allow the moral convictions of law-abiding Canadians to be censored and outlawed. In fact, already, colleagues of mine from Red Deer, Alberta, have draft legislation to end third trimester abortion, and they will bring it forward as a private member's bill.
Conservatives will defend freedom of speech and conscience for all, including for legislators. Pro-life candidates are free to run and to speak their mind as long as they win competitive nomination races.
Can you clarify today whether backbench MPs will be able to introduce motions or bills on issues touching on abortion or same-sex marriage, and if you would allow a free vote for both your caucus and cabinet on such matters?
Well, I've always been very clear, and nothing has changed for our party on this issue. This is the same, we operate under the same policies as the previous Conservative government under Stephen Harper, which is that individual MPs have the right to express themselves on matters of conscience, but that a Conservative government will not reopen these divisive social issues. And so that is our position. That has always been our position. Canadians can have confidence that these issues will not be reopened under a future Conservative government.
But first, let me say, and Garnet, Mr. Scheer has said that he's not going to open the abortion debate, right? So what you were saying does not entirely jibe with him then not opening. Well, you can say, I'm sure everybody else will press you on that because they're already nodding.
Don, if I understood, and I think if Garnet was dancing, he'd be getting an A+ right now. Dancing around the issue. Garnet, are you saying you would reopen the abortion debate in Canada, yes or no? I think you just said yes, Garnet.
Well, our leader has been clear that a Conservative government will not reopen the issue and that individual members of Parliament will have their freedom of conscience protected. I think that's very clear, that members are able to speak.
Directly contradicts what you just said about 2 minutes ago.
I fear that if we continue to allow ourselves to be characterized as some kind of demonic force simply because we have moral convictions that are at odds with the dominant political elites, we will lose our voice completely. Related to Andrew Scheer and the clarity or not, if he is clear, he really should begin suing all of the newspapers that are printing his words that say he is just not going to open this issue. And to be fair, I don't know what your position is, pro-life or pro-choice, but the truth of the matter is, if you are fair-minded, you will see that people of different views from yourself should be able to voice their opinion without discrimination. And that is what my party is for. And that is why my party allows free votes. And that is why my party allows us to bring forward legislation on moral convictions that are important to our constituents.
Well, time has moved along, and gentlemen, it's time for closing statements. David Haskell from the People's Party, you are first.
Thank you very much. Maybe over the course of this evening, you thought to yourself, I like what I'm hearing about the People's Party, but they're new, and if I vote for them, is my vote going to count? I want you to think of that in context. If you voted for the Liberals in the last election, your vote was wasted. Yes, they got in, but your vote was wasted because Justin Trudeau broke almost every promise he made, but doubled down against his ideological foes. Regarding the Conservatives, they've become ashamed of all things conservative. You can support them, but they won't support you. Vote for them and your vote is wasted. As for the NDP and the Greens, I believe their ideas would lead to the greatest restrictions on our freedom. So in this coming election, don't waste your vote. Instead, cast your vote on the waters of political change. And with the People's Party, a revitalized Canada will return to you. Thank you.